Okay, hi there again. We're going to continue our recorded lecture on section 3.2, which is the right triangle approach to trigonometry. And we're going to talk about two specific right triangles now and show you how to do those calculations. And the first right triangle is what we call 45, 45, 90. And so it looks like that, where this angle here is 45 degrees. And we can call that theta. This side is 1. This side is 1. This side would be square root of 2. This angle is 90 degrees. And so this angle up here is also 45 degrees. So remember two things, right? A squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? So 1 squared plus 1 squared equals 2 equals c squared. So c equals square root of 2. So again, kind of get used to using the Pythagorean theorem. You're going to be using it quite a bit in this class. The other thing is this idea of all three angles inside a triangle always add up to 180. So you can see the right angle is 90 degrees. And then we define these other two angles as 45 and 45. And so they all add up to 180 degrees and everything is cool. I do want to point out that we are going to talk about radians as well. I usually talk about degrees all the time, but realize that in radians, this would be pi over 2. This would be pi over 4. This would be pi over 4. And when you add all that up, you get pi, which again, in degrees is 180 degrees. So again, you got to kind of think in both ways. I always think in degrees and then convert it to radians at the end. But other people are better at thinking in radians. I'm not, but that's okay. We'll work on it together. So how are the three functions defined? Well, what is sine of 45 degrees? That's what we're calling theta here. Remember, sine is opposite, which is the 1, divided by hypotenuse, which is square root of 2. What is cosine of 45 degrees? That is adjacent, which again is 1, over hypotenuse, which is 2. And what is tangent? Well, tangent of 45 degrees would be opposite over adjacent. So that one would equal 1. So I do want you to know that your calculator, and you need to start thinking about getting familiar with what the calculator you're going to use to get these values. And so tangent was 1, right? So I have my calculator set to degrees. So if I type in 45 as degrees, I know it's backwards. And I hit tangent, I get the number 1. And so you should start to get used to practicing with your calculator a little bit. You'll see at the end of this section, we're going to do a couple applications where we calculate measurements, and you'll see how to use your calculator that way. So the other triangle that we were going to talk about is the 30, 60, 90 triangle, and that looks like this. So the angle that we're worried about here, theta, is 60 degrees. This would be a right angle, which is 90, and you'll see that this has to be 30 degrees. And so if you did this calculation, this would be square root of 3, and the hypotenuse would end up being 2. So to define the three functions this way, you have sine of 60 degrees, and that would be opposite, which is square root of 3, divided by hypotenuse, which is 2. Cosine of 60 degrees would be adjacent, which is 1, over hypotenuse, which is 2. And the third one that we'll worry about is tangent of 60 degrees. And tangent is set up as opposite, which is square root of 3, over adjacent, which is 1. So that would be square root of 3. So again, with regards to using your calculator, you will be able to get that as well. Obviously, they're going to be in decimal form. So what was that? 60 degrees times cosine gives me my 1/2 with regard to that. So try to start getting the calculator of choice to do these. So another really useful piece of paper that from the formula sheet, and I have it here, is I uploaded a little matrix of all the angles that show up all the time. And what are the trig functions? What are the values of the trig functions? Here, let me show you that one. And so that one is common values of trig functions here. And you can see we have it in both radians and degrees, which is really nice. And you'll see that when we start doing these calculations in both your homework and WebAssign and what I'll be doing throughout is we end up using these fractions. So you need to start to get a little bit comfortable with using these fractions. You're going to see 1/2 square root of 3 over 2 a lot. And so when we do these calculations, we're going to be using those. Now, if you have a weird angle like 42 degrees, it doesn't turn into a nice fraction. So you would end up using your calculators for things like that. So I'm going to end the recording here, and then the last of this section will be some applications that I'll record.